that gets me to the last two paragraphs of your book, where you conclude this way. You write, "Sectarian strife has been created by the occupation. It is not due to its failure. In fact, the dormant sectarian tensions have been nurtured to explode at any moment, and certainly the imposition of sectarian quotas on a secular country has revived moribund sectarian groups. We are being told repeatedly that the main story in Iraq is that Iraqis are killing Iraqis by the hundreds each day, and that the main question is whether it has yet become a sectarian civil war. But for Iraqis, the presence of occupation troops and the crimes they are committing is the main story, and the question is how to stop them." There's a lot there. But the first thing that jumps out at me is the idea that the sectarian fighting has been caused by the US forces, the Iraqi government that's in place now. Explain that.
Well, the political parties that moved in with the occupation, the strongest of them they were established in Iran, which is scary to start with. This is a sectarian party. The other two political parties we have, which is the two nationalist Kurdish parties, are ethnic parties. Even the Communist Party the quota got within the government is based not on being a communist party, which everybody knows that it's supposed to be a secular party, but based on being a Shiite. The leader of the party being a Shia. So he got a quota within the government and he accepted it. So the whole government was based on either the sectarian quota or the ethnic quota. None of those had deep root in Iraqi society. When Paul Bremer was in control, he was looking, in order to have his first government or council, he was looking according to the sectarian and ethnic. And that's all. He did not look for qualifications. He did not look for who represents Iraqi people. The overall picture, what you can really grasp in the end is that the important thing for the occupation is to have a weak overall groups of people, militias, so they can be in control of them. To divide and conquer. This is as old as old history, but it is still there.
So you're saying that the sectarian fighting is actually an American goal?
It has been strengthened by the Americans, yeah.
But you're saying more than that, aren't you? Aren't you saying that that's what America wants?
Yeah, I think they do, yeah. They do. They wanted, not particularly just the sectarian, but they want an overall weak groups here and there where they'll be easy to control. And this is what they're trying their best to, but it's getting really almost like now they're working on the idea of the fragmentation of the country, dividing the country. So they're working on this. But the thing is, what is ignored in the whole thing, you see, okay, this is what they want. What about Iraqi people, what they want? But majority of Iraqi people are supporting the Iraqi resistance. Hence the failure of the Americans in what they want. It's not because they're not trying. They're trying everything possible to do. But the failure coming from the Iraqi resistance and the sacrifices they are paying. And the fighting, continuous fighting, despite they are facing this enemy with the best technology in the world, the best money to manipulate people, and the corruption also, yet they are failing in Iraq. And they were failing from the beginning of the occupation.
Yeah, here's what I'm curious about. How, because there's obviously this terrible vacuum of political options after 35 years of Baath control. So what should have been done? How could they have formed better political institutions?
I don't think there was a political vacuum. Iraqi people were there. They were surprisingly still, they were academics, there were movements, and
I thought you were saying that the sanctions made so many academics leave the country.
Yeah, but not as much as now. And those people who remained in Iraq and movements were underground movement, they were absolutely capable of taking control. But the recipe wasn't really for people inside the Iraq. The recipe as being written by the US and the British is for those who've been living abroad for so many years to go back with them because they knew them. They are fantastically, they speak English, they listen to classical music, so they are people they know, they can identify with. They did not know much about Iraqi people. That's it, full stop.
Let's look forward if we can. First of all, you'd like America out as soon as possible, right? Is that fair to say?
Definitely.
And what happens then?
Oh, the destruction is so huge now, is really, we need to rely, I think, if there is any hope for us. First of all, there is the Iraqi resistance. There are many groups. We have to admit it is not united. So they are fighting. There are many of the ex-Iraqi army officers, generals and all within the movement. So those are people we have to have the Iraqi army again. We have to have people dealing with the security and safety of the people again. We relying also on the West, but in different way. And we cannot really do everything on our own. We cannot even deal with the oil as it is now on our own. We know it. We are realistic people. But inside Iraq, the minute the occupying forces will be leaving with their corruption, with their manipulation, those people who were following them or working for them on the ground, especially Iraqis, okay, they either going to leave or they're going to be acting in different way.
Even many people here who oppose the war have this conception that as bad as things are, the military is keeping a lid on violence, and that if and when they leave, the terrible violence will only get worse. There could be something akin to a genocide or much, much worse civil war. Is that something you're afraid of, or because in your view so much of the violence is directed at American troops, there would maybe even be reduced violence without those troops there?
Well, there wasn't violence before the arrival of American troops.
But
British.
It's a totally false comparison. There was also an authoritative government in place.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't give me great deal of pleasure comparing dictatorship with occupation. And the people really want the troops to leave, regardless. And they know, regardless what's going to happen.
And what do you think will happen?
They say, even if it's going to get worse, we want them to leave because there are the major reason for it. I think some of the people got the white man burden. They think they know better than Iraqis. Others, they think, well, we have the moral responsibility and we have to deal with it. We tell them, well, thank you very much.
It's a very important question, though. What will happen? What do you think will happen?
Well, nothing worse than what's happening at the moment. Okay. Nothing, definitely. Because it's everything you can think of is happening in Iraq now. Everything. You have countless prisons. No one knows about them. Detention centers, whether it's under the American, the British, the Polish, there are 30 countries sending their troops in Iraq under the US leadership. We have militias of every kind. We have the military, the mercenaries, an arm of mercenaries parallel to the American forces, exactly, if not more. So we having all this unleashed on Iraqi people who are exhausted, tired of a war, tired of the previous war, tired of the sanctions. And yet people telling us that what will happen will be vacuum, what will happen, things will get worse, or we'll have a civil war. We have it all at the moment. And the only pride we take is that Iraqis until now are resisting. And they are resilient. And they are staying, some of them, are refusing to leave. And they are fighting. And this is the only, really, what we should build on. This is the only point we have to start from, that Iraqis and Iraq belongs to Iraqis, no one else. And they know how to deal with their Iraq. It's like me coming to New York for 2 days and I claim I can occupy New York. Does that make sense to anybody?